This is Blind Like Me.
Hello, everyone.
Interviews, information, and reviews related to living with a vision disability. Your host is Tim Black. Tim has been visually impaired since birth. He's been in radio for 30 years and also hosts the podcast Inside Today's Country. Tim has never let his lack of vision stand in his way.
Well, welcome to this week's edition of Blind Like Me. Thanks very much for listening to us wherever you find your podcasts. We ask you to give us a like, a follow, and a share so everyone can find out what we're doing here on Blind Like Me. Well, this week, kind of something interesting. We got an email from a guy by the name of Joey Stuckey. Now, Joey is a musician in Georgia. He is totally blind. He's got quite the story to tell, and so we thought we would connect with him via Zoom, and you're in Macon, Georgia, correct?
You got it.
Wow, I nailed it. Welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Oh, it's my pleasure, sir.
This is very cool. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Now, I'm obviously we're seeing you here on the screen in front of me, and you're in Georgia. So let's talk a little bit about your sight or lack thereof,
Right.
because as you told me, you've been totally blind your entire life, or 18 months old. You lost your sight. So let's talk a little bit about that. How did that all happen for you?
Well, basically what happened was I had a brain tumor, and my mom thought there was something wrong with me. Because she said, I don't feel like my child, is tracking me the way he should. He doesn't seem, he seems to have a little trouble navigating. Mm-hmm. And she took me to the doctor a couple times, and they were like, you're just an overprotective mother. Go home, bake cookies. It's all fine. And,
Okay.
but moms and dads know when something's not right with their child. I mean, they do. Mm-hmm. And so my dad let go of my hand for just a second to pick something up one day. Mm-hmm. And I just walked forward and fell down a flight of 30 stairs.
Oh, wow.
And it scared my parents to death because they, people falling down stairs and 30 of them and being small, scary. Mm-hmm. So they took me to the hospital and they looked at me and they're like, oh, I think this kid's blind. And so indeed what had happened was I had a brain tumor. And the way I kind of describe it is the brain tumor was non-malignant. It was not cancerous, but it was growing at such a exponential rate that what was happening was it basically was crushing sort of the internal wiring of inside my head. So it took my eyesight and my sense of smell. But that's actually, I believe in using what you got. So I used those two things to trick my wife into marriage, actually. So I said, whatever, no matter what happens, you will always look and smell perfect if you come with me.
There you go.
And she said, I'll take it. And we've been married 17 years this June. So it worked out pretty well.
Congratulations for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I mean, it also, that's the most obvious thing is that I can't see, but it also left me with no endocrine function. So I have no thyroid. I have no adrenal function. So I don't make adrenaline. So I have medical issues that I deal with every day. So basically, I'm not being hyperbolic. It's not exaggeration. I take about 30 pills a day.
Oh, wow.
I take a shot every day. I'm getting ready to because I'm having issues with my bones. I'm going to have to start taking another injection twice a year to help with that. And so if I just don't make adrenaline, I don't make thyroid and other things. So for me, if I want to get to the office at say 9 a.m, I get up at 6 a.m, and then it gives me time to get on my medicine. I mean, I don't take any therapeutic medicine. In other words, I'm not treating any illnesses. I'm simply replacing things my body doesn't make. But it does mean that if I get sick with a cold or something, it's 2 or 3 times as hard on me as it would be on somebody else, because my body doesn't make that natural, adrenal function. And, it also, means that I can get dehydrated real quickly and all these things. So, but once I get up and running, I have 2 speeds, which is full speed ahead and off.
I was about to say, man, you're in
you know
full
how that
speed.
is, right?
Yeah.
And so once I'm up and running, nobody even knows that I have that. And I've had other issues from the brain tumor. I've got a complete metal shoulder, right shoulder replacement, and a complete right hip replacement. And so those things are not fun. They are challenging. But when I was a child, and they discovered the brain tumor, the surgeon, this is the mid 70s. So it was the dark ages of medicine.
Yep.
Compared to what we have now. And they really thought that I wasn't going to survive. They told my parents that I probably wouldn't make it. And if I did, I wouldn't walk or talk. And I can do both of those things. And so they did tell my parents that when they went into surgery, they said, look, this is going to be 7, 8, maybe 9 hours worth of surgery. And if we come out, in a time that is less than that, you need to be prepared your son didn't make it or there was a problem or something like that. They came out in around 3 hours. And the surgeon just said that he didn't really know how to explain it to my parents any other way, except that he felt like a higher power had taken hold of his hands and he lifted the tumor out. And so I think the great thing that my parents have always done, I was really sick as a child. I was sick a lot. I'd be in the hospital. I was in the hospital for about 3 months after the brain tumor, ICU and all that kind of stuff. And then on and off again as a child. And so, but I think the thing that I love about what my parents have done and has always done that is integral to my being is that they never focused on, hey, you almost died. They always said, no, you survived. And that is sort of the key to my outlook in life, to take affirmational things from moments that could be, fearful moments or tragic moments and try to find the affirmational quality if I can.
That's wild. That's an amazing thing.
It's been interesting.
How was school for you back in the 70s then?
It was tough. There were some blind schools, academies or whatever you want to call them.
We had them in Canada.
Yeah. So, but I did not go that route. My parents put me in a normal school, just a regular public school. And there was no such thing as like disability services or special services or student support services, or whatever you want to call it. We didn't have any of that stuff. So I just sort of toughed it out with the rest of the kids. And the difference was my parents would read to me at home to help me with my homework. At school, I would just sort of have to gently remind the teachers if they were writing something on the board that they needed to verbalize that. And that's it. The fortunate thing for me is that I have a really good memory.
Good for you, man. That's awesome.
And so once they said it, I had it. I mean, that was it. And I actually ended up, scholastically achieving a lot. I actually graduated high school, when I was 14. Okay. And I'd already taken, all the SATs and all that kind of stuff, and even taken 2 college classes. And the principal said, look, we have nothing else to offer you. You got to go. There's nothing else for you here.
Wow.
And so I ended up starting college. I took a year off roughly. And part of the reason for that was, I was very young and knowing what I wanted to do next was, not clear. And part of the reason was we moved from Jacksonville, Florida, to Macon, Georgia, when I was around 15. So I started college when I was 16. And so that's kind of how it all worked. But it again, even in college, there was no, disability services or anything. We just had to sort of figure it out as we went along. So my main solution was, I said, at the beginning of each class, I would stand up and say, I'm Joey Stuckey and I'm blind. I need somebody to study with, someone that can take their own notes. And then we can study together, and someone that will meet me outside and walk me into class and then tell me what's on the board and stuff like that. And, I'll pay you $100 a semester to do it, which, isn't a lot, but it was enough to make it, worth their time, gave them a little extra money, but also, a lot of people had, wanted study partners anyway. So that was one way that we combated that. And, every professor was a little different. Some professors preferred to give me my exams themselves, like orally, just talk about the information. Some said, I'm going to put the questions on a cassette for you. You have your tape recorder, which I brought with me, wherever I went. They said, you have that and you record your answers on a separate tape and just turn that in. Some of them preferred that I would have someone from the the registrar's office or somewhere come and write down my answers on the test.
Right.
So we just did whatever they wanted. And by and large, it worked out. I mean, there were hiccups from time to time, but by and large, it worked out okay.
What was it like asking people to, help you in class? Did you get any pushback for that, or were people willing to jump out and help? I mean, you were paying them $100, but was the willingness there, or was it a little bit of a challenge?
I think, the biggest thing was I don't think there was a problem with the willingness to help. I think people weren't quite sure how to react at first. Like, well, do we talk about the blind part or we don't? That was, I think there was some awkwardness there, but once they got to know me and know that I don't take offense easily and I'm intelligent enough to realize if something they've said is hurtful or not, I think they realized that blind's not a dirty word. And my favorite story of this period was that there was a guy came up to me one day at this particular point in my career in college. I was at school for about 6 hours a day, and I had a young lady who took 2 of the same classes I did. And so she stuck with me for both classes, and we had one really long class. And so, I would use traditional sight. I didn't use a cane at the time. Honestly, part of my reason for that was I felt like if I asked someone to walk me, it'd be a better way to socially engage. Not that I don't value my independence, because I certainly do, but I felt like I would be able to approach people more.
Right.
If I was walking with them and talking with them instead of trying to, navigate on my own with a cane.
Right.
So I wanted to meet people. In particular, I wanted to meet girls.
Right.
so I wanted to meet people, and I wanted to be social. And it's, so, and I'm not saying what's right for me is right for anybody else, but that's what felt right to me. So I would hold her arm in the traditional sighted guide, grip, if anybody's familiar with that. And my favorite story was we walked to class, and I think maybe the third day or something like that around of the new semester, we were in this, I'll never forget, it was a sociology class. And this guy, we had a 5-minute, it was a really long class. I think it was maybe a 2-hour or 2.5-hour class. And we had a 5-minute break in between to get water, go to the bathroom, whatever. And so the young lady that was helping me went to the restroom. And when she was gone, this guy came up and said, "Man, I am so sorry. I feel so bad to ask you this, but I just have to know, like, what's wrong with that girl?" And I said, "What do you mean? What's wrong with her?" He goes, "Well, why do you have to help her walk?" And I was like, "You're my new best friend."
That's awesome. That's really cool.
It was fun. Being blind has put me in a few interesting spots, particularly like in foreign territory, like bathrooms that you don't know. And I remember one time, it was a crazy day. I'd been running late to school, and I used to keep my shoes under a chair, and I would just sort of snake. I use like slip-on shoes, like penny loafers or whatever.
Right. And
I would just like snake my foot under there and put my foot into the shoe and just run out the door. And that's what I did. And I noticed, I was like, wow, I'm kind of wobbling today. I was like, I don't know what's going on with my feet today. And I got to school, and I used to love to sit Indian style on my desk. I would, I'd cross my legs,
Right.
And I put my hand down, just sort of casually rested my hand on my leg. And I was like, wait a minute, this is not the shoe I put on this morning. And I went and checked, and I had two different shoes on. One was a dress loafer. One was like an Indian moccasin kind of thing. And so one had a heel, one didn't. And I leaned over to the young lady that was helping me. I said, "I have on 2 different shoes." She's like, "Yeah, I know." I was like, "Why didn't you tell me?" She's like, I didn't want to embarrass you. I was like, "What?" Well, but that same day, we had to go for some reason. I don't recall why, but we had to go to a different part of the building. And during the break, I went to the restroom that I wasn't used to going to. And I found the stall and was feeling around, and I found the hinges, but I couldn't find the door handle. And it was one of those kind that doesn't have a door handle. It just sort of hangs open, and then you pull it closed, but there was not a door handle on the outside. So I thought, well, maybe it's just stuck or something. So I put my arms up over the top of the door and kind of shook it, thinking maybe it's just, stuck. And then I thought, I wonder if somebody's in here. and indeed somebody was in there. And I said, hey, is there anybody in there? And this really deep voice goes, yeah, and I'm thinking they made it deep just to scare me, And I was like, my bad, I'll just wait against the wall. And so, I mean, that's pretty funny. I mean,
Yeah.
at the moment it wasn't.
No, of course not. But now that you look back on it,
it was mortifying at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I wouldn't have had that bit of adventure if it wasn't for the fact that I couldn't see. So, I've had some interesting things happen like that in retrospect are pretty funny. But yeah, we just sort of toughed it out. I mean, again, there were challenges, and there were some professors that didn't want me to take their class because for example, there was a playwriting class that I wanted to take.
Mm-hmm.
And the professor said, well, I don't know how you can possibly do that being blind. And remember, this is before computers had really good accessibility, 80s, early 90s. And he said, I just can't see how you would take my class. So, I mean, I had a little pushback from time to time with something like that. Anything too good a job making me think I could do anything I wanted.
That's true. Now your friend, the people who guided you and helped you, are they still friends today?
Yeah. I've lost touch with a few, but I've kept in touch with a lot of people. Yeah.
That's very cool.
It was not a strictly business kind of thing.
No.
I tried to, make it appeal to them so that they would give me it at first.
Right.
But yeah, it was, I generally speaking, and I've never been shy. Mm-hmm. So if I need help, I have no problem saying, hey, I'm blind, I need a little assistance, So I don't have to say it often, but if I do, I don't mind doing it.
I think it's a really good outlook that you have, is the fact that you're not shy about it, because so many people that I have come across and talked to in seminars that you sit in and stuff like that, a lot of people who are visually impaired or totally blind are very shy about it, and they don't want people to. They want people to know about it, but on the other side, they don't want people to know about it. And they're scared to ask for help.
Sure.
And I mean, obviously you're not scared to help, and it's paid off for you in many ways. Obviously, with what happened with you in college and stuff like that. I think that's a brilliant way of doing it and a great outlook on life.
Well, the thing is, one of the things that I talk about a lot, I do some inspirational talks, and I also teach at the university level. I teach now, and I'm honored to be able to give back to hopefully a good experience like I had. I had some professors that really went the extra mile for me, and always were very thoughtful. And hey, I want to make sure that I'm able to include you in the most meaningful way. And I like to give that back. But I do feel like at the end of the day, everybody wants to be accepted as just another part of the group. Right. That's sort of our social need. It's important for our mental health. So it is true that a lot of times people feel a little awkward around someone who has a difference in their life, whether you're in a wheelchair or you're blind or whatever it is. And so I mean that is true that there's an awkwardness at times. And if adults feel awkward, you can imagine how children feel, especially when they're going through the teenage years, which is a massive time of change in itself. So, it's really important to me to talk about, the fact that I can't see. I like to frame it in this way. So I like to think about it as recognizing my limitations, but not defining myself in terms of those limitations. So it would be insane if I thought, hey, I can go drive a NASCAR. It would just be foolishness. And it would be probably a crazy idea unless your job is to offend and or annoy everybody in your neighborhood. It'd be a bad idea for me to paint your house.
Right.
So again, unless you're trying to annoy somebody.
Yep.
So I mean, you have to recognize I'll never be a fighter pilot. I'll never be an astronaut. Wonderful things that you think about wanting to do as a kid.
Sure.
I can't be a firefighter. I'm not gonna go out and be some sort of sniper. So you have to, but at the same time, I don't think of myself. I don't think of being blind first and foremost at every part of the day. I think of I recognize what I have to do differently, and then I just go about my life and my business. So, I'm not ashamed of anything. And it's totally okay if other people feel differently. That's fine. But I think that you're selling yourself short and you're missing out on a lot of life and a lot of joy if you don't just own who you are. And that is for anyone in any situation.
Yeah, I agree.
Whether you're, whether you're blind or whether you're overweight, or anything that makes you feel different or that you're embarrassed of or that you feel uncertain about. I as a teenager, I wanted to know how I stacked up against the competition as far as dating. Your mom was always going to tell you that you're good looking, so you got to throw that away. You can't put that in the equation.
Right.
So, and of course, I can't look in the mirror and go, well, am I of average attractiveness? So as a teenager, I thought a lot about that. How do I know? How do I know if I'm outpunting my coverage, as a friend of mine would say? I then eventually figured out that being attractive and being a person of worth and being someone worth spending time with was all up to me. And that once I made the decision that I was attractive and I did have something to offer, then that was all it really required. And it sounds simple, but it's a really hard thing to totally, you can say it and understand it intellectually, but it's got to go deep. It's got to be a very deep understanding. But the minute that I decided, well, being attractive is in how I carry myself, in how I project my spirit. I immediately had no trouble getting dates. I never had trouble again fitting into a social group. None of that stuff ever was an issue again. And because I made the decision, and you think about people, not to put too fine a point on it, but you think about people like Mick Jagger, who by all accounts is not the most attractive man. I have no empirical data to prove otherwise. So
I've seen pictures. Yeah,
you've seen pictures.
I've
okay,
seen
so
you're good. Yeah.
Okay, so he apparently, and yet he's one of the world's greatest sex symbols. Why? It's his swagger.
Oh yeah.
When Maroon 5 wrote the song "Moves Like Jagger," everybody understood what that meant immediately.
Totally.
But it's that swagger, it's that confidence.
Yeah.
And so that is the deal. That is the deal. So I mean, that's one of the challenges of living a successful life and living a life that's worth living to you is to figure out some of these things. So anyway, but I just always felt like that. Being blind certainly has its challenges, and there are days that it's not fun. There are days that it's stressful. There are days that's aggravating, and it's okay to say, I am not happy with this situation, or I wish that I didn't have to deal with this situation. Those are all perfectly normal, reasonable things to think, but you just can't get stuck there.
What frustrates you?
Well, primarily, not being able to drive.
Okay.
That's the biggest one. And then number 2 is not being able to read anything I want. I have to find something that's either accessible because the computer can read it to me, or I have to find something that's on audio, which is my preferred. I'm not a great Braille reader. I'm an adequate Braille reader, but I'm not a speed reader. So I would love to be able to just pick up any old magazine I want to read and just read it. I'd love to be able to read, like for example, on CDs. I'd love to be able to sit down and read the liner notes,
right?
And read, who played what and who engineered it, and who, really dig in deep to what, to what's going on. Those things are kind of annoying. It's not so much the practical aspect of driving, although that certainly can be tricky. I have to arrange my transportation carefully, so it's hard for me to be uber spur of the moment because I need to make sure I have transportation in place.
Right.
Whether that's a taxi or whether that's my wife or whether it's someone that works for me, I have to make sure that transportation. But it also is just a point of freedom. Like, I can't just hop in the car and go take a drive somewhere.
Yeah, I feel that. I hear you. Yep.
You know what I mean? I can't go get a cheeseburger from at 4 a.m. from Crystal. So, honestly. That's probably for the best. So, that's probably actually not a bad limitation to have.
Probably not.
But so I'm all about driverless cars. I'm sorry if a few sighted people have to die, but I'm all about driverless cars.
I agree with you. I cannot wait till I've always said that, or my kids have always said to me, in my lifetime, I will be able to sit in a driverless car and have it take me from point A to point B. And I said, I can't wait for that day to happen.
Me neither. I really believe it.
Then we can drag race.
Absolutely.
Right?
I mean,
there's the IndyCar race right there.
That would be sweet. I mean, who doesn't want to go in an AI car at 300 miles an hour? I mean, that's just,
Yeah, we'll both be on the Autobahn, and we'll see what happens.
Look,
there.
when it happens, we will get together and race.
There you go.
That is a promise.
We'll write that down right now.
Exactly.
Let's talk a little bit about your career as we were rolling along, hanging out, talking with Joey here on Blind Like Me this week. Obviously music is a big part of your life. You're as you told me, a guitar player, a bass player. There's probably something else you told me too. And you play other instruments that you say you're, not as accomplished on as the guitar and the bass and so forth like that. And you produce music as well. How did you get into all that?
Well, it's an interesting story. Yeah, so I play guitar, bass, and sing at a high level that I would compete with almost anybody, with. And there's a few people I wouldn't go head to head with, but by and large, I do that at a very high level. And then I play keyboards and drums and a few things like mandolin and stuff like that at what I call a low side of adequate. I can get the job done if there's nobody else around to do it. But it's not. It wouldn't be my first choice, and it shouldn't be yours. To be honest, like I don't know if I was rebelling when I was younger or not. I haven't decided, but I just didn't want to be another blind guy that played piano. I just didn't. Jeff Healy's like the only real blind guitar player that anyone knows.
Right.
And so I wanted to be. I just didn't want to play piano. And even today, it's kind of funny. It's a stereotype, and it's amusing, really. But people call me, hey, will you come play piano for us? I was like, nope. You don't want that. I don't want that. Because, in the studio, I sound pretty decent on piano, but I cheat because I play the right hand part with both hands, and then I play the left hand part with both hands.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds more like I'm better than I am. And I also slow the tempo down. So I cheat.
Okay.
But anyway, so I mean, I got into music. Music was always a huge part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
As a child, my parents were both musically inclined. Never did it professionally, but they loved music. They filled the house with music always. And so, but to be honest, I mean, most of my early life until the age of 13 or so was really focused on survival.
Right.
So I had no concept of really looking to the future at that point. It was all about survival. But when I was 13, I got pneumonia. I had to be basically at home while I was in the hospital for about a month. And then I was at home for about 2.5 months. So the whole summer was, eaten up with this bad case of pneumonia.
Mm-hmm.
And I discovered public radio.
Okay.
And public radio had these wonderful old time radios. Now in Canada, you guys still value radio in a way that here in America, in the United States, that we don't.
Mm-hmm.
And the UK is the same way.
Mm-hmm.
The UK still has wonderful radio programs on BBC Radio 4 and places like that.
Yeah.
They still dramatize radio shows, but this public radio station was playing old radio shows from the 40s, the 50s, the 60s.
Brilliant, brilliant.
Yeah,
shows.
like The Shadow.
Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The Shadow knows.
Ranger, War of the Worlds,
Mm-hmm.
and then they were playing more modern ones as well.
Mm-hmm.
From the early 80s, or late 70s. I don't remember if you remember a show called Alien Voices, but there was some of that. There was that was actually it featured Casey Kasem.
Okay.
Yeah, he was on it, and it was a wonderful sci-fi radio drama from the 70s, and it had some of the classic sci-fi radio dramas from the 40s and 50s, X-1, Dimension
Mm-hmm.
X. But anyway, I was just totally blown away with a format I'd never heard before.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, while I listen to TV and I can follow TV programs and movies about 85% successfully just by dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
The car chases and the love scenes are kind of boring, but if something happens that I don't know, I'll just lean over and ask my wife or whoever, like, hey, what just happened?
Right.
But I mean, this was the story was told with music, sound effects, dialogue. And it just blew my mind. And I thought I could make sound effects for TV and film and radio. And so my parents were open to my interests. I went and bought some really cheap recording equipment and from the local electronics store. And I used the scientific method. I just plug stuff in and said, what happens if I do this? and so then I called that DJ up who was playing this from midnight to 3 a.m. He was playing these shows. And I said, hey, I'm 13. You've changed my life. I'm just so excited by what you're doing. Is there any way to get involved with this stuff? I mean, where are you getting this stuff? How can I be, I just wanted to be part of that world. And he actually came over and visited with me and started teaching me a little, what he knew about sound.
Right.
And then I moved to Macon when I was about 15. And I still kept in touch with this gentleman. His name is Rob Thomas, and he'll always be dear to my heart.
Right.
And he was friends here in Macon with the head of the local planetarium.
Okay.
And they were on the phone chatting about audio issues at the planetarium. And Rob said, hey, I know this kid is pretty sharp. You should get him to come be your sound tech and see if he can't help you and make things better. And that's what I did. So when I did that, there were other kids that either volunteered or worked at the planetarium, people 18, older than me, 18 or early 20s. And they said, hey, we hear you got some recording equipment. Can we come record our band? Can we come record a demo with you of our band? And so I said, yeah, sure. And so by the time I was 19 years old, I had a studio in a building in downtown Macon. And I was recording bands for a living, and I've been doing it ever since. Now, as far as my musical journey, again, I've been around music all my whole life and loved it. My dad plays guitar and my mom sang and all this, but I loved it, but I never really thought about playing it seriously. But then when one of those garage bands came in and played an original song, and I was like, oh my God, that's great. Who wrote that? And they're like, oh, that's our song. It just, it just hit me just in the heart. I was like, man, I can learn to do this.
Everything I have done, I felt like such a fool. Every place I have gone just brings me back to you. My horizons, I can just reach out and touch. Just can't get enough. A matter of faith, and I'm trying to believe. Couldn't fight if I want to, just ain't meant to be. Your love has got a grip on me. Falling for you, I feel like a blind man driving. Yeah, can't see where I'm going.
I have a story to tell, and music is the vehicle to tell that story. And I said, I'm going to go get some guitar lessons. I'm going to start learning how to play. I kind of dabbled with piano, just kind of messing around. I didn't know what I was doing. But fortunately, if you play all the white keys, it's hard to make a mistake. So it's,
this is true.
You're limited in some ways, but you can at least start formulating. And at that time, I was a huge proponent of just a big fan of what we used to call contemporary space music. They call it new age music. After I started, I wanted to, I wanted to record. And so once I started recording of those garage bands, and I heard that very first original song from a band that I'd recorded, it just hit me all the way to the soul. And I knew that I wanted to do that, and that I wanted to make music because I felt like I had a story to tell, and that music would be the vehicle to tell that story. And I said, well, I've always loved education. And I thought, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. So I started taking guitar lessons. and then eventually went to school, for music. At first, my school degree was communications, and basically, like, it encompassed the degree was so nebulous. It's kind of cool because you could build your own degree. So it was kind of like marketing, PR, speech making, drama, all that kind of stuff. And I sort of went to the PR side for that. But then I decided, I know what I'll do. I'll do two majors. So I'll do the PR degree and I'll do a music major. And so, that was a journey. Now, your probably logical follow-up question to this would be, how did you learn to read music? And the actual answer to that is, my first guitar teacher honestly taught me more than I ever learned in college. He worked hard to prepare me to be able to participate at a university level before I ever got there, because he knew there were going to be challenges as a blind person to being part of the curriculum.
Right.
And so my very first lesson, he took a box of sand and drew in it and said, even though you can't see it, I want you to know what the staff looks like. Right. And I want you to know what the music notes look like. So I actually know how to read music on the page. I just can't see to do it. I've even taught my students how to read sheet music, even though I can't see to do it myself. At the time, and again, this is pre-internet, there was no one for over 100 miles that taught Braille music. So I never learned Braille music, which honestly is a bit impractical because you have to use both hands to read it. Right. So you can't read and play at the same time like your sighted counterparts. So again, we talked about earlier, I have a good memory. So I focused on the memory part. I learned my music theory really well, and I can use my intellect and my memory to compensate for no eyesight. So that's how I did it. That's how I've always done it.
That's amazing.
And I will say this, though, I play to my strengths. So I tend to be in projects where I'm the band leader and everybody else has to follow me. Okay. That just makes, that makes life easier for me. Yeah. I mean, it comes down to like effort versus reward. And so could I learn a symphony and play with an orchestra? I could, but I'd have to spend triple or quadruple the amount of time getting that information into my brain and into my hands, unlike my sighted counterparts who would be able to just read the sheet music and play, just play. I would have to commit it all to memory and all that stuff. And it would just, and so the payoff for my time expended would not be a good way to make a living. So it's better for me to focus on genres that reward creativity and improvisation, which are my strong points anyway. So I like to play jazz and blues and things like that, where that and rock and roll even, where that creativity is prized. So yeah, there's a lot of structure, but I go out on a limb every night when I perform. I do something new, something we haven't done before. There's still the basic structure, but I have visual cues that I give my band that says, hey, I'm getting ready to take another solo, or hey, I'm going to drag out this vocal section. I'm riffing. I'm having fun. The crowd loves it. I'm going to keep going, and so that they know what to do.
That's awesome.
So, that's how I can, combat not being able to read the music.
Where can people find your music online?
I am everywhere the independent music is sold. So, obviously iTunes, Apple Music, Spotify, Deezer, Amazon. But the best place is really to go to joeystuckey.com, which is a fairly comprehensive website if you're really interested. It has a lot of videos. It has a lot of free music. You can sign up for my email list. You can check out where we're performing. Right now, this is during the COVID-19 crisis, so live performances are not really an option at this point. So we're doing a lot of streaming concerts and stuff like that. But as soon as things settle down, we'll be back on the road. We tend to tour because all of us in the band, we all teach, and so we have to tour hard during the summer months when school's out.
Right.
But we still play during the rest of the year, but it's just a lot more restricted. We'll stick closer to home, but during the summer, you'll see us up in New York or Chicago, LA, wherever they want us, we'll be there. I haven't made it to Canada yet, by the way, and I want to. So
well, once the border reopens, Joe, you're more than welcome to come over.
I know. Right now they've locked me out, and rightly so. I mean, I can't say I blame them.
Joey, what piece of advice, before we let you go, what one piece of advice would you pass on to other visually impaired and blind people?
Well, I've kind of said it a little bit before, but I think it bears repeating. I mean, basically, understand that life is going to be a little bit more challenging for you than some other people. But the fact is, each one of us is a unique being, and we all have something to offer. And whatever your passion is, cultivate that, follow that, grow that, put time and effort into it. And you will find that passion will lead you where you need to go. And it may not always be easy. It may not always be pleasant. But at the end of the day, if you do that, if you have a core sense of intention, everything will unfold from that concept, from that thing that motivates your spirit. And, again, it's totally okay to say, I'm frustrated with being blind. I'm frustrated that I can't see. I'm frustrated. That's totally fine. If you were happy all the time, I would be concerned. I would be, it's like that. That's not normal.
Right.
But life is an amazing gift. There are so many incredible places and people to explore. And what you don't want to do is take life for granted. And you don't want to miss out on how incredible your life can be. Mm-hmm. And you will if you stay in that place of frustration or anger. So it's okay to visit, but you can't live there. And so, just find that passion. And let me tell you this, some people aren't going to understand you. Some people aren't going to like you, and that's cool. That's their loss. Don't worry about it. Mm-hmm. You may not always be understood. And whenever you follow your passion, there's a lot of people that say, that's crazy. You can't do that. That doesn't make any sense. Why would you do? But you have to do what you believe is right. And I believe that whenever you do what you believe is right, you will feel a sense of accomplishment and a sense of peace and a sense of gratitude that you won't get in life any other way.
Great words to end on, my friend. Thank you very much for spending some time with us on Blind Like Me. You are an incredible guy, and we'd love to get you back on here one time again and talk further. You've got endless stories, I can tell.
I have had a rich, full life, and it has been my pleasure, and I'm so excited to make a new friend. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Blind Like Me. If you have a comment or suggestion about future casts, drop us an email to blindlikeme@outlook.com. Blind Like Me is a TimBlackOnAir.com production.